Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, episode 214. I am the host, Kim Newlove. This is my recap from the Ohio Pharmacists Association annual conference, which was April 14th through 16th, 2023. The theme this year was Reimagining Pharmacy. Reimagining Pharmacy. And FYI, if you are not from Ohio, please know that we Ohioans call the Ohio Pharmacists Association OPA. OPA. We kind of call the conference that too, the annual conference. When I talk to my friends and I'm wondering if they're going, I ask, "Are you going to OPA in April?" And they say, "Yeah, I'm going to OPA." And then we say, "See you at OPA." Got it? All right, good. Now, if you're interested in the recap from OPA 2022, that was last year, check out episode 143 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. This year, I'll start with 5 brief interviews from some fantastic Ohio pharmacists, which I recorded live from my table at the trade show on Friday. I had never done that before. There's a first time for everything. Then I'll talk about which sessions I attended, what I learned, who I connected with, my plans to watch the on-demand sessions later, and much more. If you're an Ohio pharmacist, I really think you're going to like this episode. This episode also has a YouTube video that is filled with pictures that I took throughout the weekend. I am not one of those photographer people that takes pictures of everything. I did not take a ton of pictures. But if you want to see what I have, stop by my YouTube channel. How do you find my YouTube channel? You're probably wondering. There are at least 3 ways. First of all, there is a link to today's video in the description of this episode on your podcast player. Just click that and go. Or you can go to thepharmacistvoice.com and click on my YouTube link. The last way is by searching for at the Pharmacist Voice on YouTube. At the Pharmacist Voice. Easy peasy, right? Any of those 3 links will work. Enjoy. Oh, and FYI, the pictures in the video are for educational purposes only. I am not trying to monetize this episode. Now, before I roll the interviews, if you are completely new to this podcast, welcome, and let me tell you a little bit about me. Again, my name is Kim Newlove. I am a pharmacist by training, but I am not in clinical practice anymore. I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. Think of me as a medical narrator and a podcast host. What kind of work do I do? Great question. Among other things, I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors, provide medical narration to clients in the pharmaceutical, biotech, and continuing medical education industries, and I narrate content for explainer videos and e-learning projects. I was inspired by my nonverbal son who has autism to combine my background as a pharmacist with my speaking voice and launch my business, The Pharmacist Voice, in 2017. My son Craig helped me realize the power of having a voice and using it. My solo podcast episodes are about some aspect of being a pharmacist, a voice actor, a pharmacist podcaster, or my career transition from pharmacist to voice actor and podcast host. My interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you are inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 214, and you can find the show notes on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and search for episode 214. Now, let's dive into my brief interviews with Benson, Zak Fettman, Aimee O'Reilly, Brigid Groves, and Ola Latala. All of these are Ohio pharmacists. Hi, Sharif. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Can you introduce yourself for my audience, please?
Yes, absolutely. For those who don't know, my name is Benson. Not originally from Ohio, but I'm in Ohio now, and I love it here. And my love for Ohio is kind of what brought me to the Ohio Pharmacists Association. I realized that I wanted to be here and I wanted to get involved, and one of the best ways to get involved was in my state association. So while I'm New York born, Texas raised, and Ohio educated, I think, or I know that I'm going to be here a long time.
Awesome. And you're currently living in which city?
I'm currently living in Columbus, Ohio, and plan to be here for a very long time.
Awesome. And I understand you've got more than one job. What's your situation here?
Yeah, I love doing a little bit of everything. I'm the classic jack of all trades. So I currently work full time at a long term care pharmacy. I work part time in the community. I work for the State Department of Medicaid on their DUR committee. And then I also work part time for the Ohio Pharmacists Association as their student pharmacist advisor.
Nice. I would ask you what brought you to OPA this year, but I think it's because your staff. Is that right?
That is correct. I had to be here, but secretly they don't know this. I want to be here more than they pay me to be here, and I'd probably do it for free.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for stopping at my booth today. And can I ask you one last question?
Absolutely.
All right. What's your favorite thing about being a pharmacist?
I honestly think my favorite thing about being a pharmacist is that when I got into pharmacy school, I thought I would be doing one thing. And as a jack of all trades, that probably wasn't the greatest idea to me, but I knew that I loved enough things about it that it would be fun. And it turns out I can do a lot of things. And I think that's my favorite thing about being a pharmacist is the ability to do a lot of things.
Awesome. Well, keep doing what you're doing. And thanks again for stopping by the Pharmacist's Voice trade show booth.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to do this, and you have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hi, Zach. Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kim. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here at the Ohio Pharmacists Association annual conference. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Zak Fettman. I'm a third-generation independent pharmacist from Canton, Ohio, and I use my voice to help promote professional change in independent pharmacy throughout the state. And one of my favorite things about coming to OPA is getting to see all my past people I haven't seen in a year, such as yourself, and it just brightens my day entirely.
Awesome. Now, I met you at the Ohio Pharmacists Association annual conference when you were still in high school. And somebody needs to hear that because there's not many people that bring a high schooler to a conference. So much respect to your dad for doing that.
Absolutely. Actually, my Facebook memory just popped up. 10 years ago, I was just, getting ready to come back from the conference, and what a great time it was. But there have been so many people I met throughout the years, you being one of the first, and it's really just kept bringing me back every single year after.
Yeah, it's awesome to see how you've grown and changed. And you actually were one of the residents at OPA, weren't you? Or did you do a rotation? Tell me about that.
I did a rotation with OPA. This was back in 2018 in the fall when provider status got voted out of committee. And that was an exciting time to see the legislators vote it out and move it ultimately to the floor for a vote. And that's been having a long-lasting impact on our profession, and especially how it's going to be seen in the years to come.
It's exciting that you got to be part of that.
Absolutely. That was one of the highlights. We also spent some time with the Retired Pharmacists Association. We got to go down to the crime lab and see how they do investigational work on the crimes that people have committed with pharmacy and robberies, and how they are able to address and use the technology of today to uncover those mysteries.
Wow, that's the dark side of pharmacy. That's kind of
Yes.
interesting you got to see that.
You don't get to see that too often, and that was just something unique that I got to experience.
Now, what brought you to OPA this year?
I would say the exhibit hall is filled to the brim this year of new and exciting vendors that we have not seen before, and getting to talk to everybody and see how they intertwine with pharmacy is really interesting to me.
Do you like the CE too?
Oh yes, there's always great CE. There's so many innovative CEs here, such as Donnie Sullivan with his law cases. A lot, and especially since this is a reporting year for Ohio Pharmacists. And then on Sunday, I'm going to be emceeing Antonio Cha-Cha in the latest PBM news that we have yet to see.
Awesome. That's great you get to help out.
Absolutely. Glad to be a volunteer every year. It's definitely a good way to get back to the profession.
Yes, and you were a judge for the OTC Challenge among all the different colleges of pharmacy. That's cool.
Yes, that was this morning.
Awesome. Good job being a judge.
Oh, thank you.
All right, before I let you head out and go check out the rest of the trade show, can you tell me what's your favorite thing about being a pharmacist?
Well, I definitely, have a legacy of being a pharmacist, with family and coming from a good line, that have clearly paved a good path. And I think it's one of the best things to wake up every morning and work alongside my dad and my uncle, throughout the years, how I'd always envisioned it ever since the high school days. And just seeing that come to fruition and continue on throughout the years. That's my favorite thing about being a pharmacist.
I love it. I love it. Way to represent independent pharmacy.
Absolutely.
Zak, thanks for being on the Pharmacist Voice podcast.
It's a pleasure, Kim. Thank you.
Hi, Aimee. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Kim. I'm Aimee O'Reilly. I own O'Reilly Family Pharmacy in Worthington, Ohio, and I'm the current president of the Ohio Pharmacists Association.
Awesome, Madam President. So nice to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Awesome. Now, I know that you are the outgoing president, but even if you weren't the outgoing president of OPA, what brings you to this conference every year?
So when people ask me that, I always tell them I love standing in the room with the leaders of the profession at any given point in time. There is nothing more motivating and more inspiring than listening to the people that are practicing at the top of their licenses and learning about how you can take even just that little next step to get there.
Awesome. Yes, leaders have the power to inspire. And I love how people use their voices to advocate for whatever topic it is, whether it's migraines or we're talking about provider status. I love advocacy and I love education, which is a lot of what we do here. We learn, but I find it kind of entertaining too. I mean, I like live CE better than reading CE. What's your take on it?
I love the engagement that comes with live CE and not just the learning, because I'm a visual learner and so it helps me to physically see people, but also the networking that we get to do when we're in these situations. And I see friends and colleagues, and I practically tackled someone on the escalator this morning because I hadn't seen them in 10 years and since we graduated. And so it's fun to experience all of that together.
Oh, that's nice. You want to give her or him a shout out?
Yeah, it was, what's her married name now? Caroline Connor from Ohio Northern.
All right, shout out. That's cool. Well, thank you for sharing what brought you to OPA and what's going to keep you coming back as you go out and are no longer the president tomorrow. But let's talk about the pharmacy profession. What's your favorite thing about being a pharmacist?
I love the light in people's eyes when you explain something and it finally clicks for them. And I know that I've made an impact and made them healthier or feel better or just somehow more empowered to take care of their health.
That's a really good favorite thing. Absolutely. Now, as we kind of start to wrap this up, is there anything else you'd like to share? Maybe your website for your pharmacy or some inspiration for students or other pharmacists?
Yeah, I would just say, OPA is really meant to be the professional organization for the entire pharmacy state of Ohio. And it's never too early or too late to get engaged or to take that first step to being engaged. Join, be a member, and see where it can take you.
Aimee, thanks for stopping by my booth here at the OPA annual conference. Take care. Hi, Brigid. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I am doing so well, Kim. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. It's the end of the trade show on the first day, Friday, April 14th. Good to have you. You're the last one of the day. So I'd love to have you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, my name is Brigid Groves, and I am a pharmacist. I work for the American Pharmacists Association, and I'm our vice president for pharmacy practice.
Nice. I feel like very special that you have stopped by my table so we could record a little bit of a conversation. Now, I know that you're a past president here at OPA, but what else brought you here to the annual conference?
Certainly being a past president and being involved with the association is something that has brought me professionally value and joy throughout my career. In particular, for this meeting, I had the opportunity to present on pharmacist well-being and working conditions, which are certainly an area that we as a profession need to continue addressing. And I was pleased to have the chance to present to my peers and to share some recommendations on how to improve the working conditions, both from an individual level as well as a systemic level.
Thank you for giving that talk. I plan to catch the replay, but I did see the slides.
Thanks. It's so nice that we have the opportunity to have the sessions replayed and to be able to listen to those on our own time outside of the registration and the meeting itself.
Absolutely, yes. I think there's up to 30 hours of recorded CE that I can catch after this conference, which I'm super excited about. Yes, so anything I couldn't catch because there were two that I had to choose between and I just couldn't make it to one, then I will get to see it. That's awesome.
Wonderful.
Way to go, OPA. Awesome. Now, I want to ask you, what's your favorite thing about being a pharmacist?
Certainly is a challenge to pick one thing that is my favorite, but if I am pressed for an answer, I feel like as an individual, I can only do so much. But with my role and my position and the opportunities that we have through associations, the ripple effect for our other pharmacists, for our other pharmacy personnel, and thereby our patients is just that much more amplified. And so with our opportunities to be that individual voice, but then to have the ripple effect beyond, that is what brings me the most joy and finds me fulfillment in all the work that I have the opportunity to do.
Awesome. You can touch a lot of lives with the positions you hold. That's awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the important work that you do, and thanks for stopping by my booth here at the Ohio Pharmacists Association Annual Conference.
Thanks, Kim. It's really fun.
Hi, Ola. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I am exhausted, but it's been super exciting. It's been a great first day of the OPA Annual, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited.
Well, it's not every day I get to interview a fellow podcaster.
I learned from the pro, the queen herself. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, you are the host of the OPA podcast.
Yes. I just started out a few months ago. It's been great, and it's been a lot of fun. I love interviewing other pharmacists. It's very fun.
Was it worth it to start the podcast?
Absolutely. Yes. If by saying that, I would recommend anyone that has any inkling or wants to do a podcast, definitely start it and see where you can go from there.
Absolutely. And this is a skill that you can take with you when you leave the OPA residency program and go on and start your own podcast and do something else. You can put this on your resume, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. It's nice to have another skill or a thing that you can bring to the table, even to another job. Let's say if you start off at a different job, they want to do a podcast, you already have something under your wing that you can bring, and everyone loves when you can bring something new to the table. So I would like to say, I hope that it's a value. So.
Absolutely. It adds value to you as a professional. That's exciting. Yep. I have listened to all 4 of the episodes so far that have come out, and I can tell that there's improvement over time.
Thank you. That is a lot coming from you as you're a pro and you've been doing this for a while. And I do appreciate your loyalty listening to all 4 episodes that I have.
Oh, that's thank you, because I'm folding laundry and I need something to distract me.
Oh God.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know that you are with OPA. Can you tell me what your role is with OPA right now, other than hosting the podcast?
Yeah. So as the OPA fellow, kind of a jack of all trades in the sense of I help out in every area aspect of association management, which means a lot of things. It means membership. It means helping out with continuing education, helping with membership engagement, involvement, coordinating and planning events. So it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun, and every single day is a different day, which keeps it exciting, and it's something different.
And you are with OPA at a historic time, where there's been a change of leadership during your year here. Wow. I mean, what changes have you seen?
Oh, so many, in the sense of leadership has been a huge change. As we had Ernie Boyd as our past former executive director, which was so sad to see him leave. I was super excited to work with him.
He's the best.
For longer. Yes.
He's amazing.
Yes, 35 years of experience at OPA. It was nice of our interim executive director, Donald Bennett, to step in. He really helped with leading and taking charge at a very high, stressful period, big, huge transitional period that we had a lot of shifting to do with responsibilities and duties. So that was very, very nice of him. But we're excited that we have officially announced today that Dave Burke, he is going to be our new executive director. So it'll be exciting for a new chapter, a new period, a new face for OPA.
Absolutely. And I'm sure Ernie is breathing a sigh of relief because
Absolutely.
it's a great successor.
Yes, absolutely. He has accomplished so many things. This retirement is so well deserved.
Oh, yeah. Amen. Yeah. And tomorrow night, Saturday night, we're going to say goodbye to Ernie in fine fashion, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to do it in great fashion and great style. And I think I think it will be a great event. It's going to be a great little celebration.
Awesome. I'm planning to be there as well.
Yes.
Now, I've got to ask you, you're a brand new licensed pharmacist. This is your first year, but do you have a favorite thing about being a pharmacist?
I love nothing more than feeling like you made an impact in that patient's life, in their health outcomes, or whether you get a seat or not. It's that feeling that you potentially will, or if you do happen to see it. So I actually did start at Costco a month ago, so Costco Pharmacy, and I really enjoy counseling patients. That's my most favorite, like educating and telling the patients and trying to explain it in terms that like are very helpful to them. I love helping with health conditions. But I would say that's the thing that I love the most, because that's our job as pharmacists, to be resources, not only to other healthcare professionals, but the patients especially.
Awesome. That's a great favorite thing. Yeah. I wish you luck. Will you be full-time with them as you transition out of the OPA fellowship and into practice?
So we'll see with that, at least in this area. Because the retention is so high at Costco, there aren't any jobs available. So I'm actually looking potentially at a second job. I'll keep with Costco, but also a second job in hospital of some sort. So that is what I'm looking forward to.
And when are you done with OPA?
I will be finishing up and wrapping up the fellowship at the end of June.
All right, folks, she's on the market. Hire Ola Latala.
Thank you, Kim, for the shout out.
No problem. All right, thanks for being here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. You take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Sharif, Zak, Aimee, Brigid, and Ola for taking the time to chat with me at the OPA annual conference this year. I had a lot of fun having a table for the first time and doing live in-person interviews with all of you. That was amazing. I have never done 5 live interviews in one day. Thanks for the experience. Those interviews are a tough act to follow, but at this time, let's pivot to a recap of which sessions I attended and what I learned. When I did this last year in 2022, I kept it brief, and I will do the same thing this year so we can just keep it moving along. Here we go. Oh, and let me set the stage real quick. There were 3 days with CE sessions. We had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday had 4 time slots with 4 different offerings per time slot, total of 16 offerings. Then Saturday had 4 time slots with 4 offerings per time slot as well. 16 offerings again. Then Sunday had 3 time slots with 2 offerings per time slot. Some of the sessions repeated throughout the weekend, like the law review on Saturday. In general, there is a great variety of topics. I appreciate the variety, and we attendees can watch almost all of the sessions that we missed live on demand later. In fact, we have access to them through June 30th. Thank you, OPA. That's amazing. I earned 10 and a half hours of CE live at the conference, and then I'll have the opportunity to earn, I think, more than 20 hours on demand, again until June 30th. That's a great opportunity. Thanks again, OPA. I love that I have 2 full months to knock those CEs that I did not catch live out. On demand is amazing. Which sessions did I attend live? Starting with Friday morning, I attended Medication Safety Vulnerabilities. That was led by Shelley Morvay, PharmD, and Maria Celis Wieslow, PharmD. Both are medication safety pharmacists at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. I need my patient/medication safety CE, so this checked the box. That's why I picked that one. I also do love medication safety information. Anyways, the big takeaway for me from this session was that there is a spectrum of safety strategies available for improving medication safety. And I didn't know my terminology before this talk. 2 of the terms that I learned were forcing functions and the hierarchy of error reduction strategies. When they talked about them, I do recognize what they were talking about, but I didn't know my vocabulary. By the way, forcing functions are the most effective error reduction strategies, but they are also the hardest to implement. The visual examples used in this talk were very helpful. All right, moving on. Mid-morning, I attended a talk on new opportunities in the biotech industry. That was led by Mark Sweeney, PharmD from Profero team. He was joined on stage by Harry Benson from Commissioning Agents Inc., also known as CAI, Scott Roberts from Citrus Health, and via video, Chris Antipas. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Chris Antipas, PharmD from Oste's South Hills Pharmacy. The biggest takeaway from this talk for me was that there are career opportunities for pharmacists in the biotech space. As gene and cell therapies emerge, biotech is an exciting place for pharmacists. The OTC and Self-Care Challenge was my last session on Friday morning. The OTC and Self-Care Challenge is a Jeopardy game type competition among the schools of pharmacy in Ohio. This is always a well-attended session filled with a lot of college students and a lot of energy, even in the audience. Teams from 6 of Ohio's 7 pharmacy schools competed this year. They were the University of Toledo, that's my alma mater, the University of Cincinnati, NeoMed, also known as Northeast Ohio Medical University, the Ohio State University, the University of Findlay, and Ohio Northern University. Cedarville University did not participate this year. Moderators were Christine Klein, PharmD, and Max Conrad, PharmD. They always do a great job. And there were plenty of judges, students, and faculty helping as well. Everyone worked well together, and they got through both rounds of Jeopardy and Final Jeopardy in under 60 minutes. Just like the TV show, they got her done. I know that I'm spending more time talking about this session than I have spent talking about the others, but this session was fun, and whoever came up with the categories needs credit for their work. I hope they don't mind me sharing the categories on the podcast here. I won't share the questions and answers, but the categories were really clever. So here we go. Do you want to hear the categories? All right. In round 1, there were 5 categories. They were be a quitter, smoking cessation. That's so clever. All right. The second one was use your head, headache. The third one was cough it up. Fourth was looks aren't everything, hair, weight, and skin. And the fifth and final category was no baby, contraception. That was clever. All right. In round 2, there were 5 categories again. They were number 1, another one bites the dust, insect bites. Number 2, allergies peasy, cold and allergy. Number 3, tummy trouble, heartburn, dyspepsia, and intestinal gas. Number 4, hard stop, constipation. And number 5, make a run for it, diarrhea and urinary incontinence. Somebody has a sense of humor, and I appreciate that. Those were great categories, and if I remember right, the University of Cincinnati won. Congratulations, Bearcats, and good job to all the students that competed. I saw a lot of right answers on their answer boards. Next, I attended the awards ceremony and luncheon that was around noontime. Congratulations to all the winners, especially my fellow podcaster and Ohio pharmacist, Eric Geyer. Eric Geyer, PharmD, won the Pharmacist Public Relations Award. Congratulations on your award, Eric. Now, one of the highlights for me was hearing from the new OPA executive director, whose name is David Burke. David Burke succeeds Ernie Boyd. Ernie Boyd was the executive director of the Ohio Pharmacists Association for more than 34 years. When I was a pharmacy student, Ernie was the executive director, so back in the 90s. We've come a long way, Ernie. Congratulations on your retirement. So now we've got David Burke. He's an Ohio pharmacist, and it was a pleasure to hear from him. At my table, I got to sit with my friend, Dr. Neera Kadakia, and I also made the acquaintance of several Ohio pharmacists, including a very nice MSL from Janssen named Zach Robinson and a woman named Stacy who works with Mark Sweeney on the Profero team. Nice to meet you. After lunch, I skipped the afternoon CE session, went back to my hotel room, and grabbed my gear for the trade show. The trade show was from 4 to 6 p.m., and I set up around 3. I've never done this before, but I needed about 30 to 45 minutes to set up. A few people stopped by my table early, and I must apologize. I was elbow deep in microphones, cables, and other stuff that I needed to set up, and I didn't get to talk to whoever stopped by when I was setting up, and I'm sorry. Anyways, I had to get set up, and I didn't mean to ignore anyone, but once I was set up, I had a blast talking to students and pharmacists, OPA staff, and other exhibitors. I made some connections, I got some business leads, I recorded 5 podcast interviews, which you heard earlier, and I had a great time. It was my first time having a table at a trade show, and I would say that I had a good experience. I want to thank Tim Ulbrich for telling me about the trade show table opportunity. I did not know about it until we were recording an episode for my podcast, which will appear in June. Tim's going to be part of the Pharmacist Authors series. I also want to thank OPA's Director of Marketing and Trade Shows. Her name is Janice Johnson. Thank you, Janice, for getting me all set up. And nice job. I met a lot of people, answered a lot of questions, and stayed busy for the entire 2 hours. I would highly recommend this opportunity to other Ohio pharmacists. Also, I had great neighbors during the trade show. I was one of 4 tables hosted by Ohio Pharmacist entrepreneurs. OPA called it the OPA Entrepreneurship Experience. Tim Ulbrich, PharmD from Your Financial Pharmacist, was my neighbor, and our neighbors down the row were Kelly Carlstrom, PharmD, and Kimber Booth, PharmD. All 3 are pharmacist entrepreneurs in Ohio, and all 3 have been on my podcast. Thank you all, by the way, and I will put a link to their interviews in my show notes. What was my trade show table setup like? Just in case you're wondering, I had a 6-foot table with podcasting equipment and a very simple display. I had a cardboard display, I will admit it. I got in on this kind of last minute, but it was a good setup. This cardboard display featured the type of work that I do, a description of my voice, projects that I've done, past clients, a description of my ideal client, my rates, which people are always curious about, my deliverables, meaning what is it that I give people? What am I selling? Information about my online courses, my business cards, and I even had an iPad with a slideshow of pictures showing what I do and some information about me, like what I do for fun. For example, riding motorcycles, playing board games, and spending time with my family. What did I learn from having a table at a trade show? I learned that I need to update my poster. I know that I put one together kind of last minute, but that's okay. I can level up for the next one. My content was good, and I've even thought about making a podcast episode based on the content that was on my poster. So I could talk about my vocal profile, projects that I've done, past clients, a description of my ideal client, my rates, my deliverables, information about my online courses, and so on. That would be like a really nice episode where I could let people get to know me a little bit better because my business has evolved over the years. And I think I'll stick in some stuff in that episode about things that I like to do for fun too, because I always feel like that helps people get to know me. The motorcycle thing throws people every time. I don't look like I like motorcycles, but I do. I am on bike number 5. All right, let's move on, shall we? After the trade show, I was exhausted. I walked to a nearby park, did a lap, and then wound down for the night at my hotel. So on Saturday, April 15th, I attended 4 CEs. I'll run through those super quick. First thing in the morning, Aimee PharmD gave a presentation with a functional and integrative medicine flavor as she talked about soil health, plant health, and, of course, human health. By the way, Aimee is the host of Farming for Health podcast. Farming for Health podcast. There's a link to that in the show notes. I had no idea that she was a podcaster until she mentioned it during her presentation, and I'm so glad that she did. I'm always looking to connect with other pharmacist podcasters. At the end of her session, Dr. Cipolla gave us all some homegrown organic spinach. That was a first. I have never been given vegetables at an OPA CE session, and I must say, I liked it. It was very different and memorable. Next, I attended a talk titled Leading in Times of Trauma, Helping Frontline Heroes Cope with Burnout. This talk was given by Helen Sarani, PharmD. Dr. Sarani is the Executive Vice President and CEO of the Florida Pharmacy Association. She is extremely competent on the topic of trauma, and she made the point that we experience trauma when we're exposed to events that are too much, too soon, and too fast for our nervous systems to process. Well said. We experience trauma when we're exposed to events that are too much, too soon, and too fast for our nervous systems to process. That statement was worth saying twice. At the trade show after Dr. Sarani's talk, she sold me an autographed copy of her memoir, Trading Grenades for Candy, A Kurdish Refugee's American Journey. It looks amazing, and I put a link to the book in the show notes, which you can find at thepharmacistvoice.com. Click on the podcast tab, look for episode 214. After I bought Dr. Sarani's book, I spent 2 hours at the trade show. Inside the trade show, a lot was going on. There was lunch, free headshots, and a residency and fellowship expo, and so much more. No table for me at this one, by the way. I just roamed around and enjoyed myself. I met people, I got a free headshot, thanks OPA. I reconnected with acquaintances and friends, I signed Ernie Boyd's retirement card, and I met someone that I want to tell you about. I stopped by something that students listening to this will be interested in. What I did was I stopped by the Residency and Fellowship Expo. There was a whole line of tables that were part of this expo. At the very last table, I met the director of the University of Findlay Telehealth Center. It's abbreviated UFTHC. Now, the director's name is Dr. Rachel O'Malley, and she is trying to get the word out about 2 fellowships that are available at the UFTHC, the University of Findlay Telehealth Center. If you are interested in a fellowship, go to this website, telehealthcenter.findlay.edu. telehealthcenter.findlay.edu. There's a link to it in the show notes. Once you go to the website, click on the Careers tab and apply today. These fellowships start in July of 2023. Again, I'll put a link to that website, and I'll also put Dr. O'Malley's email address in the show notes. Check out that UFTHC fellowship today. And also, happy birthday, Dr. O'Malley! As this episode is released on April 28th, it is Dr. Rachel O'Malley's birthday. On that happy note, let's move on. After lunchtime and after the expo and the trade show, I attended 2 more CE sessions. First up was a session on motivational interviewing. It was titled Moving from Basic Understanding to Practical Application. It was led by Dr. Beth Ann Brown, PharmD, Professor of Pharmacy Practice and Administrative Sciences at the University of Cincinnati. There was a worksheet for this one. The worksheet addressed a behavior which we wanted to change in our own lives. Mine was reducing screen time, specifically social media use. The most helpful part of this talk was working through examples of developing dissonance. I did not learn about motivational interviewing in college, but I have learned about it since, and reviewing developing dissonance was helpful. When you develop dissonance, you work your way through, on one hand, and on the other hand type statements. For example, on one hand, social media helps me stay top of mind with my network and be connected to my clients and podcast audience. On the other hand, by engaging with social media, I lose valuable time that I could use to submit auditions and work on paid projects. Can you relate? Social media can be a time suck, but it can also be really helpful for connecting. Dr. Brown talked about good things and less good things. And at the end, we all created a SMART goal. You know SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Mine went like this: I will use an app that limits my social media time on my smartphone to 60 minutes per day. I will turn it on this Monday and use it for 21 days to develop a new habit of using social media less. It sounds like a good goal, right? Have I done it yet? No, no, I haven't. But I'm thinking about it. If you know of any apps that help cut down on social media use, I am serious, let me know. Kim at thepharmacistvoice.com. In summary, I really liked Dr. Brown's talk about motivational interviewing. And as you can tell, I could really use what I learned to help me reduce my screen time right away. I just need to do it. All right, the second and final Saturday afternoon session for me was Current Trends and Impact of Recreational Drug Use with Todd Grimm, RPH, and Darby Bryce, PharmD. Todd is the Director of Ambulatory and Retail Pharmacy Services at University Hospitals, and Dr. Bryce is his PGY1 pharmacy resident. There was a lot of timely information in this talk. They talked about the deadliest drugs in the United States in 2021. Opioids, of course, were at the top of the list. Overdose death stats were shared, and I learned about a newer drug. Have you heard of xylazine? Xylazine is a non-opioid animal tranquilizer frequently used with fentanyl to extend euphoric effects. Who knew? I didn't know about this one. Excellent talk, very timely topic. After that last CE session, I relaxed and I took a walk with my friend, Dr. Lauren Castle. We went to a nearby park and caught up a little bit. If you don't know Lauren, she is the founder of the Functional Medicine Pharmacists Alliance, also known as FMPHA. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I am always grateful when we get to spend some time together. I don't think we've been together since Metapreneurs in August of 2022. Conferences are always a good time to reconnect. Saturday evening was fun. The President's Banquet is always Saturday evening. We have appetizers and drinks beforehand and a dessert reception afterwards. I ran into a number of people that I have not seen in a while. The number one person I want to mention is Dr. Norman Billups. He was the Dean of the College of Pharmacy at the University of Toledo when I started pharmacy school back in 1996. He retired shortly after I arrived, and he was there because he was receiving the Life Member Award at Saturday night's President's Banquet. How exciting. And then Ernie Boyd also received the same award, the Life Member Award. At the President's Banquet, we also celebrated Ernie's retirement. He was the executive director of the Ohio Pharmacists Association for more than 34 years. When I started pharmacy school back in 1996, Ernie was already there. And here I am, a pharmacist 20-some years later. Ernie is just retiring. Congratulations, Ernie. You've had a long and successful career. Another highlight from the President's Banquet was sitting with my friends, the Fettman family, Zak, Steve, and Matt. We all sat together at dinner. They treat me like family, and I appreciate them. I look forward to sitting with them every year at the President's Banquet, especially Matt. He's my unofficial date. We ate, we visited, we listened to speeches, we watched officers get sworn in, we watched award winners walk across the stage, and so much more. It just might have been the best Saturday night that I have ever had at OPA. Good company, lots of things to celebrate, a lot going on. Congratulations to Logan Yoho, PharmD, our new OPA president. I know you're going to be great. And thank you to Dr. Aimee O'Reilly for being such an amazing president. Great job. And overall, what a great night. And what a long day. It was a long day. I slept like a rock. Then I packed up in the morning and I attended 3 CE sessions on Sunday. First up on Sunday was Sue Paul's talk, The Pharmacist of the Future, Value-Based Pharmacy Services Beyond MTM and Vaccines. If you don't know Sue Paul, let me just say she's amazing. She is an Ohio pharmacist, a wife, a mom of 4, a volunteer with the Ohio Pharmacists Association, a pharmacogenomics pharmacist, the co-founder of PGX 101, the founder of Synergy Consulting LLC, and co-founder of Metapreneurs. Sue inspired me to get involved with Metapreneurs after I heard her talk at OPA in 2017. Sue was not talking about Metapreneurs at OPA, but when I followed up with her after her talk, so she was at her house, I was at mine, I later learned about Metapreneurs from Sue. Metapreneurs has been a big part of my life for 5 years. All right, at her session this year, Sue talked about the clinic where she works. I believe it's called Crossroad Health Center or Crossroads Health Center, and it's in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. She talked about how she improves patient outcomes, sometimes very creatively, I might add, like texting patients, and she explained that she bills for her services. What Sue does at her clinic is what I think many pharmacists want to do. I think that's why the session was called The Pharmacist of the Future. Sue is the Pharmacist of the Future. Great session. Sunday, mid-morning, I attended a session called The High Costs of PBM Savings. What a title. It totally gives you a hint at what it's about. Drug prices and PBMs. All right, this session was well attended, especially for a Sunday morning. A lot of people start leaving town early. They stayed for this one. The 2 speakers were Antonio Chacha, president of 3 Axis Advisors, and Benjamin Link, PharmD, VP of Pharmacy at 3 Axis Advisors. I'm at a loss for words on how to explain this info-packed talk. So I'll just say some simple stuff. The talk was amazing. Antonio and Benjamin did a fantastic job giving a history lesson about PBMs and explaining how the lack of transparency in drug pricing negatively impacts pharmacists and pharmacies in Ohio. If you have not heard Antonio Chacha talk about drug pricing or PBMs, and you're concerned about PBMs and drug pricing, you need to start following him now. He's very knowledgeable. Find other podcasts that he's been on. You will learn a lot. And finally, late morning, I attended my last CE session of the entire conference. The title of the session was 340B Drug Pricing Program Overview. It was led by Jengis Whitener, PharmD. He's the manager of 340B Compliance and Education at Apexis. I don't know much about 340B drug pricing, but I do know more now than I did before his talk, so that's good. My big question is, how do patients know that a pharmacy offers 340B pricing? It seems like underinsured patients or the general public who wants the best price, wouldn't they just all go to 340B pharmacies if they knew which ones got the lowest prices? It just makes sense. Am I right? I'm confused about how one learns which pharmacies get the 340B prices. It seems like this is one of the many drug prices that's hidden. That wraps up the sessions that I attended at the 2023 OPA Annual Conference. I had a great time and I learned a lot. I plan to watch the sessions that I missed live on demand through June 30th. And I don't know if you or OPA wants to hear this, but I appreciate the opportunity to consume those on-demand sessions while I wash dishes, fold laundry, work out at the gym, or eat. As I start to wrap this up, I just want to give some quick shout outs to my pharmacist friends and acquaintances that I got pictures with because there will be pictures in the YouTube videos. It was great to see you, Jengis Whitener. Greg Cramp and your twin brother David, both pharmacists. Lovely to see you in the same room at the same time. It's been like 10 years since we've all been together in the same room. Stu Beatty, the new dean of the Ohio Northern University College of Pharmacy. Good to see you. Brian Curick, a Kappa Psi buddy from college that I hadn't seen in like 22 years. I was a Lammy, he was a Kappa Psi. We saw each other a lot. Good to see you, buddy. Brooke Williamson, who I recently connected with on LinkedIn. Nice to meet you. I'm glad you came up and said hi. Richard Wenzel, I met you Friday at the trade show. It was a pleasure speaking to you. And finally, Ann Mormon, a staff pharmacist at Kroger who I enjoy seeing at OPA events. She always remembers me and my connection to my podcast. She comes up and says hi. Thanks for the smiles. It's always good to see you. She even suggested a drug name for a future episode. More on that later. Thanks, Anne. That's it for shoutouts, and that does it for episode 214 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. I hope you enjoyed my recap of the Ohio Pharmacists Association Annual Conference 2023. If you're an Ohio pharmacist or a pharmacy student in Ohio, I hope to see you next year at the 2024 Annual Conference. And if you see me, come on up and say hello and introduce yourself. I love meeting people. As for the show notes, please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. In the show notes today, you'll find a link to the Ohio Pharmacists Association, my 2022 OPA recap, that's from last year. That's episode 143 of this podcast. You'll find links to podcast episodes featuring Ohio pharmacists, such as Tim Ulbrich, Kelly Karlstrom, Kimber Booth, Lauren Castle, and Stu Beatty. You'll also find my social media links and much, much more. If you know someone who would like this episode, please share it with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. I'll be back next Friday, May 5th, with a new drug name pronunciation episode. Thanks for listening today. I'll talk to you next week.